Third, Arsenal fourth, then Spurs who won today, and West Ham. But we're going to start with the game at Craven Cottage tonight, and why not? It was Fulham against Arsenal. Fulham came from behind and they beat Arsenal by 2-1. The great thing about this show, and you've all been very much part of it throughout the season, is we talk to real people who actually go and watch their clubs, people who can feel for their clubs, both good and bad, at various different times. And nothing changes as far as we're concerned on the Sunday Night Club with that one. Simon Duke is the chairman of the Fulham Supporters Trust. Richard Butler is over, and Arsenal. Good evening to you guys.
Evening, Mark.
Really, Richard, I hope it's not over and Arsenal out, because the last two games have not been quite the way you thought they would go.
No, it hasn't. I mean, we spoke last week after the Liverpool game, and I think we all saw a performance from Arsenal that suggested that maybe this year was going to be different in terms of the mentality of the team and whether or not we could take that final step. Whereas the last two games have taken us back again to the end of last season. This was the sort of performances that we produced in April and May last year. And out of the blue almost, really. I wasn't expecting us to lose to West Ham in the way that we did, and certainly not today. I mean, that performance today was... I mean, Mikel Arteta said it was our worst performance of the season. It's hard to disagree. It's one of our worst performances for a long time, really. I mean, credit to Fulham, they were brilliant today. Right, even when they went behind, they didn't panic. They played their game. But, I mean, I'm getting to the point now where I'm starting to wonder whether we can actually make that next step with this manager. Now, I saw something on social media during the week, and, well, no, I mean, you say that. I mean, I saw it described, and, you might laugh. I saw this described as Arteta is Arsenal's Brendan Rodgers, and we need to find our Jurgen Klopp. And who that Jurgen Klopp is for Arsenal, I'm not sure. But I kind of think that's quite a good comparison. Brendan Rodgers took Liverpool second in the league. They blew a title they should have won, and they never was able to take that next step. Maybe we're in that position now. I don't know. Maybe it's just because of the last two games. But I certainly think there's something in that. And do we need someone else to take the club to that next level to really go and beat City and Liverpool?
Richard, it's why we have fans like you on, supporters like you, because you feel it. You feel things when perhaps the rest of us, like myself, I'm happy now. Neil Harris has bedded in pretty well at Cambridge United, so we're okay, thank you, as long as we manage to get somebody up front in the transfer window. But Arsenal, those two defeats means, of course, Simon, after three defeats of your own, Fulham don't have to worry anymore.
I'm not sure about that. We don't need to worry for a little while, certainly, but I don't know. You look at the last two games, particularly Burnley and Bournemouth, and performances. Burnley wasn't as bad a performance as Bournemouth, but we didn't take chances and got done with two sucker punches, which is just how the game goes. Bournemouth, for some reason, we were okay for 15, 20 minutes, then totally switched off. And for their first goal, if you haven't seen it, we let a player run 30, 40 yards to our midfield without challenge. So I wasn't that excited by the prospect of playing Arsenal today. So it was a pleasant surprise. But as Richard acknowledged, I think on the day we deserved it. We fought, we harried, we shut down, and we could easily have folded, having gone a goal down after 4 or 5 minutes after what we've been through recently. But football's a funny game, because there's been all this talk about Jimenez not being particularly good up until about 6 games ago. Then he scores in 2 or 3 games in succession, then gets sent off, and we go back to our old ways. Was it because he wasn't in the side, or do we just let it get in our mind? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, both of you make great points, and I'm only teasing you, really, because I feel exactly the same, Richard, at times. But there is, for me, the thought, and you've made such a good one there, Simon, and I'll come back to you in a moment. I'll go back to you, Richard, first. You see, the brittleness of the strength of some of these players mentally. Why is it so far behind at times, their physical strengths? I mean, they are supreme athletes, all of them now. They look after themselves. They get everything that they possibly need. And, of course, they are helped as well. If they're a bit down, or they've all lost confidence together, or one or two of them had. But that always seems to be the Achilles heel when it comes to winning or losing or scoring or not.
I mean, that's sport, isn't it? I mean, you can't always be at your best. And I think in a team sport as well, in particular, you've got 11 different players on the pitch at any one time, and it's getting the right blend and the balance between it. Obviously, some players are not always going to be at their best, and that's for the management team and a coaching team to understand that and make necessary adjustments. We made a few changes to the lineup today.
Yeah.
Not that it made any difference at all. In fact, it made a difference in the wrong way, because we played even worse today than we did on Thursday, if that was possible. But I do think with sport, it happens, doesn't it? You know, some days you're just not quite feeling 100%, and if you've got 2 or 3 players or 4 players in that starting 11 that are maybe suffering a little bit of confidence, or maybe we do. Martinelli at the moment's not playing particularly well. Bukayo Saka's not at his best. I know he did score a goal today, but he's not been at his best. You know, we've got 2 or 3 players, key players, that aren't playing well. Gabriel Jesus was left out of the starting team today, for example. So that's a management issue, though, isn't it? Like you said, the players get everything that they possibly can need to go out there and perform on the pitch the best that they can. And I'm not saying they're not trying or whatever it is, but it's down to the management team and the coaching staff to get to these, pick up these signs from the players that maybe this is the time this player needs a rest. This is the time we need to make some changes. And it's difficult sometimes to blame the players. There's a lot of pressure on them. There's a lot of you know, games. We played Thursday, we played today, and we've had game last Saturday. So the games come quick and fast. You've got to be, yes, that's part of the job. Of course it is. They get paid a lot of money to do it. But I think the management team and the coaching staff have got to understand the right time to make changes in certain positions in the team and look at it that way. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're happy to think, well, this is the team that's been doing well, so I'm going to stick with it, even though sometimes you need to change it.
I understand all of that. And Simon and Richard, I'm just going to be very quick with this story. So when I knew that I wanted to be a sports broadcaster, I rang up my local club, Cambridge United, and asked if I could go and watch them train. And cut a long story short, I trained with them every day for 3 years, having done the breakfast show on my local radio station at Cambridgeshire. And I travelled with them away from home. I then did my own part by helping them, the players that came in on loan or through transfers, to show them where they and their families should live, where they should drink, where they shouldn't drink, and all of that. But what I found during training, and I'm not going to give any tales away here at all by saying this, is that the individual personalities of all of these players, who were all good enough to play at the level they were and to be paid for it, was so very different. Some of them had to be sort of cuddled and licked all over, if I can put it that way, and others, you know, just needed shouting at and what have you. And I know modern players now, we say, you know, we've really got to understand mental health issues. The management team totally understood their individuals, but it just wasn't always there. They got to know them. And I think you're right in some ways that these guys physically are perhaps tired. Mentally, they're perhaps not quite in the right place, some of them, because you never know whether or not, you know, the kid could be ill, the wife might be pregnant again, and you're worried about that. There are all of these things. And in our world of broadcasting, what doesn't happen now is the insight into that to give them a bit of a break, 1 or 2 players, because we're no longer allowed to go and watch them train hardly. The interviews are all manufactured and everything like this, and there's no trust anymore. And I think we used to be the conduit. What?
Do you think a little bit that there's maybe too many different members of staff in the coaching team?
Well, I completely agree.
In the days at Cambridge, you probably had a manager, you had a coach, and maybe a
youth team guy. That was it.
Now you've got, at Arsenal, you've got probably 20 different people. So you're getting 20 different people, and it's maybe confusing everybody. No one really knows exactly each individual player now. Maybe isn't getting the time with one person.
The added confusion as well, and Simon, I'll bring you in here as well, is the agent. Because the players are onto their agents the whole time. And the agents, for me, whatever they'd say, and any of them can ring us up right now, 0344 499 1000, if they want to get involved. They won't. They are not interested in anything more than making a lot of money out of those players. There are some, and Andrew Mills is joining us after 8 o'clock tonight. He was one of the first ever professional agents who who have looked and do look after their players, but there's an awful lot that don't, particularly those that are away from home. And Simon, I think this is part of it. Do we play too much football? Do we expect too much?
I don't know, Mark. I mean, it's this time of year. You would expect the sides with the bigger squads to come to the fore because they can rotate more. We're lucky at the moment. We've not got that many injuries, and Marco Silva does manage players like Willian, for example. He's managing him very carefully. Do we play too much football? I don't think we do. Yeah. I mean, I was reminded this week that Fulham's record home win was 10-1 against Ipswich Town in, I think it was 1963.
Yeah.
2 days later, we go to Ipswich, and I think we lost 4-2. That's 2 games in 3 days. And it's not that long ago that you were seeing things like that. I mean, Cambridge presumably played Friday and play again tomorrow.
Well, we managed to cut the electricity at Stevenage, so the game was off. Because we had nobody playing up front. I'm only joking. That was a strange decision, by the way, but that's for another day.
I mean, your point on agents, I think, what do I know about being a football agent? But it seems to me the only way they make the sort of money they want to make is by moving their players on rather than trying to get them to be loyal. And maybe that's something that needs to be fixed in the game. I don't know. But, they will agitate players to move. And, what price of contract now? Well, will we lose Joel Polina in the January window? I don't know.
Well, this is the thing. I'm glad you've brought this point up as well, Simon, here, because this is it. We don't know whether any of these players not playing today or playing today have had whispers from their agent that they may well be moved on or they're not going to be moved on or whatever happened. Destabilising in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, but the last thing you want, Mark, is if an agent convinces his player he needs to move on and the club say, no, you're not going, end of story, you're under contract, do you want an unhappy player? I mean, one of the strengths we've got at the moment is there seems to be a very, very good team spirit amongst the squad. Whether they're playing or not, they're all in it together. If you have one player who's a subject of interest and gets a bit disenchanted because his wishes are not being met, do you really want to keep them? It's a very, very difficult one. And I'm not singling out any player here. I'm talking about players in general. If they've got the opportunity to move and the club put a stop on it and they see that as possibly being a very good career move, is their heart going to be in it for the second half of the season?
No, you see, for me...
I'm almost saying what price of contract?
I agree. And I'll bring you back in, Richard, here. One thing that I would like to see these days, and it'll never happen, is that I think you have a manager and a squad for the whole of the season. And the owner, or whoever the owner's getting to do his bidding for transfers or, whatever else and however many people they have, rather than just sort of throw money like confetti and then expect the fans to pick up the bill by rising tickets and merchandise and everything else, why not make them have the same squad? Let's think. It's a squad of 42 here. They only play one team. There's hardly any second team. They're all out on loan. Why don't we just have one squad and one manager for the whole season? And if you go down or you don't do as well as you want, that's when you sack them. Not in the middle of the season. That totally disrupts it for the fans who would know whether or not they were going to have a bad season or not.
I think you touch on an important point there, Mark. That in the old days, your players who were on the verge of the first team but not playing had a combination league that played during the week. They were getting match practice. At the moment, we've got players at Fulham who probably haven't played a competitive game this season because they're fringe players for the first team. They're too old for the under-21s, under-18s, or as an overage player. They just don't get the game time. In the good old days, was it the good old days? The reserves would be playing on a Wednesday afternoon.
And I also think, Richard, that you also get players who come in knowing perhaps they're only in for one if they do really well, who don't, in fact, get up to speed in the right way and aren't mentally right.
Well, I think I also had that problem this season because Mikel Arteta makes very few changes to the starting 11 unless he has to because of injuries or suspensions. So when the players have been sitting on the bench for 10 games in a row, suddenly they've got to come on with half an hour to play, 20 minutes to play. They're not match sharp, are they? They're fit, but they're not match sharp to play. And to expect them to have an impact in the game when you need them is not going to happen unless, we don't have a reserve team so much anymore. Some of them do play in the sort of under 21s occasionally to get some games, but it's not the same, is it? You can't compare it. So it is a problem. I mean, I think the squads are too big. Really, when you think about it, because half of them never get used. And that's the problem, isn't it? You can't play more than 11 players at a time. No. You can have 19 players, 20 players in your squad. You can still only make the 5 substitutions, and half the time they don't even make that many.
No, when you can have 38, 43 different squad members most of these teams had, and they put some of them out on loan. I can't believe, why can't we, when the first team is playing at home against another first team in the Premier League, perhaps you only do it once a season against each of the other sides, why can't the away teams play each other, the reserves, at the same time?
Yeah. I mean, it would make sense, wouldn't it? And also, as well, it would give people maybe the opportunity.
There'd be more money. There'd be people go and watch a second team of all these sides. Perhaps people, believe it or not, who couldn't afford to go all the time, who'd get an opportunity to see some of the great players.
No, exactly. It would make perfect sense, wouldn't it? You could maybe play at, not necessarily at the other team's ground. You could play at maybe a local ground with a smaller capacity. You could get 10,000 fans in. People would watch it. It would give the players competitive football. That would be a really good idea. But it's almost like
training grounds. Most training grounds these days could cater for games like that.
They could.
You know, Motspur Park, we've got, it's probably a non-league standard stadium where the under-21s, under-18s and Fulham women play.
Yep, I agree. I agree with both of you. But they're much more interested, aren't they, in just bleating about there's going to be so much football right the way through now till the World Club Cup for these top teams, and everybody else will just have to be part. You know, FIFA and UEFA, we might as well forget all about them at the moment. They have no interest in our league whatsoever, having reversed the decision. And if any of our clubs do want to go off and play elsewhere, just go. Let us get back to our football pyramid.
Mark, what they're doing, UEFA and FIFA, is they're expanding the World Cup team size. They're expanding the way the Champions League's going to work.
Yep.
That's only putting more and more pressure on Premier League clubs.
Exactly.
And what's at the root of it all?
Well, moolah. I mean, that's it. And it's a shame because the fans themselves deserve more for me. Anyway, a final thought from both of you. Do you have a fantastic moment, first of all, Simon, with Fulham this season?
There's been quite a few, Mark. I mean, today has got to be up there because it's the first time we've beaten the top 6 side, sorry, Richard, for quite a while. I guess another high point for me was when Raul Jimenez got his first league goal at home. He came in the summer. He's not a Mitrovic replacement. Those around him have got to get used to playing with him. He works his socks off. And early days, it was to little avail. And when you think what he went through with that accident at Arsenal 3 years ago, he was winning heading duels today. And you think, why do you put yourself at risk when you've been through what you've been through? So I suppose when he got his first goal, it was like a weight lifted off the place. But then, of course, low points, he goes and gets sent off at Newcastle.
Yeah.
You can't have it all.
That's the supporters' lot. And what about you, Richard?
I mean, I suppose a high point for me has been seeing how quickly Declan Rice has fitted into the team, what a difference he's made. I mean, what a great... yes, he costs a lot of money, but wow, what a player he is. And, obviously seeing him play for West Ham before and for England, I never realised exactly how good he was. But seeing him play, even today when Arsenal were poor, he still stands out as being our best player virtually every single week. So that's been a massive high. Obviously, we've had a few lows as well, particularly in the last week or so. As we know, today was a massive low. The performance today was terrible. But yeah, I mean, just seeing Declan Rice settle in, a lot of pressure on him with that price tag. And you wouldn't know it by watching him play. You wouldn't know that he costs that much money, and players sometimes take a long time to live up to their sort of price tag, don't they? You see it happen quite a lot, and sometimes it can take a player a year, 6 months to really show what their worth is. But he's come in first game of the season, he was bang on it. and it's been brilliant to see him come into the team and do that really. So that's at this moment in time, that is probably the high. Obviously, being top of the league was quite nice for a week or two a little while ago, and let's hope we can get back there. But I don't know, lots needs to happen in 2024 for Arsenal to be challenging for that league now. I think.
Well, I don't know about
today,
what is there? 2 points between the lot of you, isn't there?
Yeah, but I think it's a little bit more than just that, isn't it? Man City haven't started yet. Let's be honest, they've not even started. When they start, then we're gonna be in trouble, all of us. Let's be fair, you know. So I don't know. Maybe it's just today's, you know, put me on a bit of a downer watching the game today. But we'll see what happens. We need a good January, don't we? Transfer window. We need a couple of players.
It'll be a good or a horrific January for somebody or the other. That's the great game that we all love. Thank you for being so much part of the Sunday Night Club in the first half of the season. Have a great, happy New Year, and see you guys again in the new year. That's how we do it here. It's the Sunday Night Club. It's people like you and me who actually follow the sport, as opposed to those that get paid a lot of money and some of them who don't enjoy it at all. It's part of life.